It never fails. About, I would say, over 90% of the time, when I find a problem with the outside of a townhouse, like a walkway, stairwell, roof, something like that, the agent tells the buyer or my client that, hey, you don't have to worry about it because it's the association's gonna pay for that. It's the association's problem. Like there's like a tree that they pick the dollar bills from to fix the problems. You guys have to understand that when you buy a townhouse, good home inspectors, we're going to look at the outside. I don't care if there's an association. I don't care if it's not your responsibility indirect or directly. But it is indirectly your responsibility, right? Because you guys are going to pay into a management association, right? And from that pot of money, they're going to fund the all the maintenance and future maintenance requirements of the townhomes, right? So if you need a roof and the rest of the townhomes need a roof, don't you want to know that your townhome association has the reserves to properly fund that roofing project? That can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, for these townhome units. So you guys have to understand when you buy a townhome, you also have to do your due diligence regarding the reserves that are available to fix these big problems. It never fails. I would say about 90% of the time, when I find a problem on the exterior of a townhome, whether that be in a stairwell, a walkway problem, a deck or balcony problem, or a roof issue, the agent is going to chime in and tell my customer or client that, hey, you don't have to worry about that because that's the problem of the management association. That's not your responsibility. What do you mean it's not your responsibility? You're going to pay into the management association, right? You have a management association dues that are probably paid monthly, and all that money goes into a pot. And from that pot, all the maintenance on these buildings, that's where that money comes from. But if there's a big need for, say, roofing or deck problems, there may not be adequate funding to fix those problems. So as a buyer of a townhouse, I really want you guys to understand that you should be looking at or have your attorney be analyzing the reserve statement of these townhomes or condos that you're buying. Because the last thing you want to do as a new buyer, you walk into your new home and in a couple months you get a huge assessment because the townhomes, need a new roof or there's deck problems or walkway problems. There's a lot of things that go wrong and you want to make sure that these places are adequately funded. So do yourself a favor and pull that reserve statement and start asking questions just to protect yourself. Hi everyone, John here from LookSmart Home Inspections, and today I want to spend a couple minutes talking about townhome inspections and condo inspections. There's not much difference between a townhome inspection, a condo inspection, and a standard home inspection. Good home inspectors, we're going to handle it really the same way. And we're going to start outside of these units. With condos, one-floor condos, maybe not so much. If you're in a high-rise that you're having that unit inspected, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot for a home inspector to do on the outside of the home. But if you're buying a lower-level condo or a townhome, sure, there's plenty for us to look at on the outside of these units. And I think it's really important that we do that. And I would suggest strongly that home inspectors do that. Because a lot of the times I'm finding problems on the outside of these townhomes, whether that be the roof, the decking problems, walkways, driveways, stairwell issues, and grading issues. And usually the agent will chime in and say that, hey, you know what, to my client, you're not responsible for these issues. The management association are the ones responsible, for handling the outside problems. But really, indirectly, you are responsible because as a buyer of a townhome, you're going to be paying dues into a management association. And from that pool of money, the management association is going to be allocating those funds to service the various maintenance needs of the townhome. And also from those funds, if say there's a big project necessary like a roof or a deck problem, And if you don't have adequate funds, then what you can have is an assessment, which is an additional payment to satisfy the needs, to build up that pot of money to adequately pay for those improvements that are necessary. So when you guys buy a townhome or condo, I really want you to pay attention and to make sure you look at that reserve statement, which is basically the financial analysis of the condo or townhome. And you want to make sure that there is adequate reserves to handle any of those larger projects. So if your home inspector tells you that you have wood rot at the deck, or the deck has support problems, or hand or guardrail problems, or if you need a new roof on your townhome, then you should really understand if the townhome community is properly well funded to handle those larger issues. Because if they are not, guess who's going to come calling? They're going to come calling and ask you to pay for that. And that's a difficult spot to be in if you just moved into this townhome or condo. And 4 or 5 months later, you're hit with a big assessment for roofing, for a deck, for walkways, handrails, guardrails, whatever it is. The big ticket items on the exterior of a townhome are generally the balcony, the deck, and the roofing. And there could be some siding issues or other problems, but generally those are the large issues. So you want to make sure that you hire a home inspector who is going to look at that full exterior of that condo or townhouse. You don't want a home inspector to just kind of go, okay, it's not my problem. It's not my client's problem because there's a management association. I think that good home inspectors, and I do this, I look at the exterior of townhomes just as I would any single family home. And I got to be honest, sometimes the agents, they don't really like that. But I don't really care. I have an obligation to my client to protect them and to provide the information necessary so they can make an intelligent decision about the home or this townhome that they're thinking about buying. And that also includes the outside of the house. What if it needs a new roof? What if there's a deck problem? What if there's a stairwell problem? What if there's a walkway problem? What if there's a problem in the backyard with grading? All of these things I find with townhomes. And you as a buyer of a townhome need to understand that. It's crucially important. So make sure you guys get a home inspector who's willing to go the extra mile and do a full assessment of the outside of your condo or townhome. The next thing I want you guys to get is a reserve statement. And this is a financial document that tells you how much money is set aside for any unforeseen near-term problems that the townhome development is going to have. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, what are you talking about? What kind of unforeseen things? There could be a lot of things. You plan and plan and plan, but as in life in general, things come up that are unexpected. What if there was a major a leak in the water supply line, feeding the condo building, or even supplying water to your own individual townhomes? What if there during a routine inspection, a municipal building inspector found a bunch of code violations, with the electrical, and there was a lot of work to be done to bring that electrical, or say to bring that plumbing, up to modern code standards, right? That would take a lot of those funds, and you want that association to be managed in a way that there are adequate funds to handle those unforeseen issues. Very important. The next thing I want you guys to get is a reserve study, and the reserve study is a little bit different than the reserve statement. The reserve study is outward looking. So a company has come in, a consultant has come in to analyze the future needs of the condo development or townhome development. And you want to make sure that reserve study, what they think is the upcoming problems, that there is an adequate there's adequate money set aside, to obviously to handle those longer term issues. Say that the roofs and the buildings need to be, they have like a 5 year remaining life expectancy. And you guys are going to want to understand that, hey, you know what? We have a plan in place, and the money that we're currently paying the condo board or association, and that is in place, and that will be adequate enough to cover those roofing needs, in 5 years. So those are two really important things: is the reserve study and the reserve statement. Don't neglect either, because this is a part of buying a condo and doing your proper due diligence, making sure that what you're buying is really well financially funded. The first thing I want you guys to do is to obtain a copy of the bylaws of the association that deals with the townhome that you're thinking about purchasing. In those bylaws, it will explain a lot of different things, such as the operation of the HOA board, its membership, and just actually when it meets and how it meets and how decisions are actually made. So that's really, really important. The next thing is a CCR document. In this document, it'll explain what is the responsibility of you, the buyer or owner of the townhome, once you take possession, and what is the responsibility of the HOA or the management association. And you want to find out what that management association covers. Do they cover the roof? Do they cover the walkways, driveway? Do they cover the stairwells? Do they cover the exterior siding, or any problems that should occur to the outside of the townhome that you're obviously going to be purchasing? So you need to get clarity fully on what's the responsibility that you have versus what's the responsibility of the management association. Now, I've had several times where I've looked at a roof on a townhome and I said that roof is old. That roof is like 20, 25 years old, and you should budget for replacement. And then my client goes and talks to the management association, and the management association says, you know what, we don't cover the roofs. The roof is your responsibility. So just because there's a management association, it doesn't mean that they're going to cover all of the exterior issues. And most agents are going to say that, you're fully covered, by the management association. Don't worry about that. But you know what? It's our job to worry about that. We worry about everything. We want to make sure that you guys understand fully and are fully protected. So the first thing you guys are going to do is pull that bylaws document and pull that CCR document. That's your first step. And you're going to learn about how that management association works, how it's configured, when it meets, and you're also going to learn about what is their responsibility versus what is your responsibility, which is crucially important. So make sure you do that before you sign on the dotted line. The next thing I want you guys to get is the HOA budget. And getting a HOA budget is a useful document because it helps you understand where the monthly expenses of your HOA are going. So you can look for things like, what your HOA is spending for lawn maintenance, exterior maintenance. A lot of HOAs do a lot of mulching, planting, snow removal. It's just a good idea to understand how much money is going out for those, for those items. And you can kind of think to yourself, is this a reasonable amount? Is this a crazy amount of money to be spending? Is my money being allocated efficiently? And am I going to be happy with paying dues into this HOA? And does it appear that they're making good, sound financial decisions with the money, that I'm paying into it? I also want you guys to get is the master insurance documentation regarding what type of insurance the HOA has. And this is useful because it'll show you what actually is covered insurance-wise by the HOA. And then you can possibly fill in any gaps with your own insurance coverage. So it's important to know that what is covered by that management association master insurance policy and what is not covered. So you can make a good decision about covering, your own townhome regarding taking up any of those deficiencies or lagging areas with your own insurance policy if they don't cover some areas. So I think these two things are also very important, and you shouldn't neglect getting either. You guys also want to make sure that you're fully aware of the cost of the HOA. So you can make a monthly budget and you know exactly how much money is going to be going out to serve the HOA, each and every month. It's also useful, in my opinion, to understand and go look backwards a few years and determine if those HOA dues have really increased incrementally. I'm sure they've increased slightly. We all know we're all paying a lot of money for everything. But you don't want to see these large, big, wide gaps. 2 years ago, it was $400 a month. 2 years later, now it's $650 a month. I would think twice about that. I would wonder, is this a trend? Are we going to see, this substantial increase in my HOA dues moving forward? And you have to, take, for example, your where you are in your life. Am I going to retire soon? My job stable? There's a lot of things to consider. So if you see these wide gaps in HOA dues, you may want to just kind of inquire and ask some questions about why that is. I also want you guys to ask for any information regarding any special assessments that are currently on the table that you may not currently know about. So it's always good to understand if the HOA has any special assessments coming up so you can plan for that. I mean, these are not really the unforeseen things, but now these are the sort of the planned things. Are there any special assessments coming up that are going to affect you negatively? That's crucially important. You also want to find out if there's a lot of delinquency in paying HOA dues. What's the percentage of people in your development that are delinquent on their HOA dues? And if you see a large amount of delinquency in the payment of HOA dues, your HOA may not be funded adequately. And you know what? Who would be, next to hold the bag would be you and your family possibly. So these are all really important aspects of doing your work regarding understanding the financial condition of the HOA that you're going to be joining. If I was buying a townhome, I would park my car, I would walk around, and I would start talking to people. And I would ask them questions about how happy they are living in that development and how happy they are or satisfied are they, with the current HOA. Are they on top of the maintenance? Are they responsive, which is truly important? So if I put a request in for the HOA, I don't want it to just go into a black hole. I want to know that somebody actually cares about me to read my request and actually take some action step necessary, to get that resolved, whatever the problem is. So I would definitely talk to people, and generally they're happy to talk to you about the development, either good or bad. I find that also in homes when I'm dealing with the tenants in a home that I'm buying. And I'm not saying that your whole HOA is occupied by tenants, but people want to talk and they generally want to be helpful. So ask questions. You see somebody, don't be rude or anything, but you can certainly say, hey, I'm buying, this townhome, right? I'm just having my home inspection. How happy are you to be living here? How long have you lived here? Have you found the HOA very responsive? Are they up to the task? Are the people who run the HOA, are they nice people to deal with? Any information that you can garner, because you're spending, these townhomes are as much as single family homes. And sometimes they're more than single family homes. And if you put together the taxes that you're going to pay plus the HOA dues, it's a small fortune. I don't even know how a lot of people even do it anymore. So you want to make sure that you're going to be happy with the HOA and the people that make up the HOA. So don't be afraid to ask those questions about just people who reside in that townhome community. This is a crucially important step. I would also ask if there's any current or pending litigation occurring on the HOA. Sometimes you're not aware of these things, right? And there's been a couple instances where I've done inspections for people. One recently, and there was a litigation happening with a fire that occurred inside the building. And there's an expensive litigation going on, and HOA has to hire attorneys, and it could be a big mess. So what you want to do is just ask the question and get the documentation, and maybe have your attorney get the documentation regarding any current or pending litigation that may subject you to negative consequences financially or otherwise, if you move into this townhome community. So that's very important as well. Ask for current or pending litigation issues. I've found just some HOAs to be weird and demanding on their rules and obligations regarding what you can do and what you can't do. So if you're a person coming from a single family home and moving to a condo or townhouse development, you should understand, and some of those examples would be to, can I put my little garden in the back of this townhome, in that little bit of land, that I have in the townhome? Can I, put plants or other things on my patio? Can I put a flag, the American flag? Can I put a flag out in front of my house? Is that allowed? Can I park my work truck in the driveway? Or can I put a car in the driveway, or do all cars have to be in the garage? There's HOAs out there that I know that you cannot put your car or leave it out on the driveway. It has to be stored in the garage at all times. You can't even wash your car in your own driveway at some of these areas. So it's really important to understand how these rules are going to affect you. And oftentimes it's not all that a smooth transition if you're coming from a single family home, to a townhome. And there's great appeal, for townhomes and condos as far as, the maintenance being done, and you don't have to do that. And I can see the appeal of these units, as a person ages and they're not really, wanting to get into the nitty gritty about, maintaining their home. So there's a ton of positives, but there also can be a lot of negatives. And it's really up to you guys to determine if this is the right living arrangement for you, and are you going to be happy there? There's a lot of obviously, things to consider. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you found this a little useful, coming from, perspective of a home inspector who does a lot of inspections on all different kinds of properties, and, condos and townhouses certainly being, some of the things, that we inspect. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.